Hello everyone, welcome back to the Movie Reviewers 100. My name is Scott, also known as CineRam, and I have the honor and the pleasure of posting James's birthday video on James's actual birthday. Today, July 24th, James, aka DVD Collector 1974, who posts on Tuesdays here on this channel, is 40 years old. 40 years old today. Awesome, man. He's an incredible guy. He's a very, very active member here on YouTube. In addition to this collab channel, he also has a personal channel, of course, in which he posts top 10 lists and weekly chats and puppet videos. He's a great guy. He's also got a great wife and a couple of great kids, and he has his own comic book shop. He's amazing. And so I wanted to say happy birthday very much to him. Hope he has a great day today. And in honor of James's birthday, of course, we are talking about people involved in the film business who share the same birthday as him. And one of those people just happens to be Robert Hays. Robert Hays, of course, starred in a film back in the 80s, which was a comedy, one of the first of its kind, Airplane by Zucker, Abrams, and Zucker, one of the kinds of comedies that you can't take seriously for a single moment, has a very sort of cliched storyline and just uses it as an excuse to have jokes and gags thrown at you every single second. Of course, these guys also went on to do Top Secret with Val Kilmer, the Naked Gun movies with Leslie Nielsen, and I think one of them did a couple of the Scary Movies, 3 and 4. But they were sort of one of a kind at the time. Now there's all kinds of parodies being put out every year. There's a couple of guys who do movies like Disaster Movie, Date Movie, Epic Movie, stuff like that. They're not nearly as good, partly because they're more sort of focused on pop culture of the moment, of the past year or two, rather than sort of time-honored cliches, I guess you could say. Airplane has never, the original Airplane has never been my favorite movie of theirs. I tend to like Top Secret more, and I think actually Airplane 2 has some really good stuff in it, particularly the William Shatner bits. But Airplane is still a really solid movie. It's lots of fun, and there are many gags in this that when I rewatched it this morning, I saw coming from a mile off, because I remembered. And of course, there are a lot of gags that everyone kind of knows, even if you've never seen the movie. For example, the drinking problem, which is basically not the guy's an alcoholic, he just has trouble bringing the actual cup to his mouth. He hits his cheek instead and it spills down his shirt. The Don't Call Me Shirley gag, the I think I picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue gag, things like that. Oh, and then there's this classic exchange. There's many sick people aboard this plane, you know, we've got to get to a hospital. And a hospital, doctor? What is it? It's a big building with lots of sick people in it, but that's not important right now. Those are some classic gags from Airplane. And so what I did was, when I watched this, I wanted to pick my 10 favorite gags of the movie. Do a top 10 for you, James, specifically. My 10 favorite gags from Airplane. If you're not familiar with the movie, the story is very, very simple. You've got this former Air Force pilot who's suffered from post-traumatic stress and really doesn't have his life together, and so his girlfriend wants to leave him. As it happens, she's a flight attendant. So after she breaks the news to him, he decides to get on board the plane she's working on and fly with her to Chicago in the hopes that he can convince her that she should give him another chance. However, disaster strikes when there's a big food poisoning scare. There was a choice of basically eating either steak or fish, and anyone who ate the fish got violently ill, including the entire crew in the cockpit. So now the doctor, played by Leslie Nielsen, is asked to take over flying the plane and getting them land safely in Chicago, which she would have a hard time doing under even the best of circumstances. Leslie Nielsen, of course, started the Naked Gun movies, and also Lloyd Bridges, who plays one of the guys working on the ground crew in Chicago, went on to star in a couple of the Hot Shots movies with Charlie Sheen. Those are very, very similar films. So anyway, my 10 favorite gags in Airplane. Number 10, this is a very convenient one for you, James, seeing as how Jaws is your favorite movie. The opening title sequence has the rear fin of the 747 moving back and forth amongst the clouds while the John Williams Jaws theme plays. It's very funny. Number 9, when the captain gets sick, his wife is contacted at home in the middle of the night. You see her answer the phone while she's lying in bed, and as she's talking with the person on the end of the line, she turns on the light, and as it turns out, there's a horse in bed with her. And after she hangs up, she says, I have to go to the airport to see about my husband let yourself out the back, and she leaves. It's just like a crazy, crazy idea. Very twisted, some of these jokes right here. Number 8, a simple sight gag. A whole bunch of reporters, and they're sort of like 1940s style reporters with the hats and overcoats and pads of paper rather than tape recorders. They don't look like reporters from the 80s. They get some news, and they all run simultaneously for a phone booth. There's a sort of line of phone booths, and they all hit them at once, and the whole thing like topples over to the ground. That's pretty great. There's another gag involving a woman who's running alongside the plane as it's taxiing down the runway, waving to her boyfriend and knocking over stuff as she goes along. That's similar. Number 7, the eggs. When a woman gets sick, Leslie Nielsen is examining her, and some of the symptoms, of course, are very comical. She keeps producing whole eggs from her mouth, and he keeps pulling egg after egg out of her mouth, and then he cracks one open and a live bird flies out of it. I'm just like, how did he do that? That was crazy, right? That's really nuts. Number 6, when Robert Stack is contacted about helping Robert Hayes' character go through the procedure of landing the plane, he's contacted at home. And his wife answers the door, and the guy from the airline basically is attacked by her dog. The dog seems very enthusiastic, is pawing him and up on its hind legs, you know, sniffing him and everything like that. And she tells the dog to cool it and pull back. But then the dog leaps for him again and actually knocks him to the ground. And then there's a gag with a mirror later on in that scene. That was pretty cool as well. Unexpected. Those are gags I didn't remember from seeing them before, but it's pretty funny. Number 5, a pretty simple gag. You've got people sitting on the airplane getting ready for takeoff. There's a nun reading Boy's Life magazine and a boy reading Nun's Life magazine. That's pretty funny. As they're preparing for takeoff, the captain is talking with the navigator, and this is typical of a number of scenes in which people are having a conversation while something crazy is happening in the background, and they have to be careful basically not to blow a line or they're going to mess up the scene because whatever's taking place in the background is pretty elaborate. There's a guy basically acting as a gas station attendant while the airplane is parked. He's using a squeegee on the windows, and then he opens up the hood to check the oil, and then he tries to get the hood closed again. He sits on it, but then he slides off the nose cone of the plane and falls to the ground. He goes, ah! Meanwhile, the guys in the cockpit don't break character. They continue on with their conversation. It's priceless. There's another gag involving a lit match that's just like timed perfectly. That's kind of similar to that as well. My number 3 favorite gag in the film, the Girl Scouts. You've got a flashback where Robert Hayes is talking about hanging out in some seedy bar where a fight could break out at any minute. You see the close-up of this card game as someone lays cards down on the table, and then the opponent basically grabs the person's hand and flips it over to see that they're hiding a card, and then punches start getting thrown, but then the camera zooms out to see it's a couple of Girl Scouts in their Girl Scout uniforms having a knockdown, drag-out brawl in the bar, throwing each other across the room. And of course, there's a gag in which one of the girls slams the other onto the bar and pushes her all the length of the bar, and then she crashes headfirst in the jukebox, and Saturday Night Fever starts up by the Bee Gees, and everyone starts dancing. It's a great scene, really, really great scene. But the part about the Girl Scouts is especially funny. Number 2, at the very, very end of the movie, as it turns out, Robert Hayes' character is actually a taxi driver, and he leaves a guy waiting on the curb at the airport that he just left from, and then gets on the plane to try and talk to his girlfriend. At the very end of the end credits, the guy is still sitting there in the cab. He checks his watch and he goes, I'll give him another 20 minutes, but that's it. And finally, my favorite gag in the whole movie. You've got a boy who's dressed very, very properly. He's about 8, 9 years old or so. He's dressed in a suit very properly, and he approaches a girl who's sitting alone in her seat, also dressed very nicely. He's got a tray with a couple of cups of coffee on it, and he says, excuse me, I saw you sitting alone. Would you care for a cup of coffee? And the girl says, why, thank you, please sit down. And he hands her a cup of coffee, and then they sit down, and they're all very well composed, and then he offers her cream. He's like, would you like some cream? And she says, no, thank you, I like my coffee black, like my men. That's so wrong. It's so crazy. I laughed pretty hard when I saw that. I'd forgotten all about that gag. Anyway, James, thanks very much for having a birthday and allowing us to do this. I look forward to seeing more videos from you as always. And for those of you who aren't subscribed to James, please do so. I'll leave a link to his channel and his personal channel in the description. Subscribe to our channel, of course, if you haven't, and please visit our Facebook page where you can suggest future themes, actors, actresses, directors, what have you. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much for watching. James, have a great birthday, and say hi to Zig for me. Bye-bye.